All I Want for Christmas is the 12th episode of the second season of Everybody Loves Raymond. This one's directed by Meyer, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I talk about what happens in the episode. And I always love the Christmas ones. This one's maybe not actually as Christmassy as some because it's less about Christmas and more about sex on Christmas Day. It actually starts off with Ray and Debra trying to make an appointment, i.e. a time when they both agree to have sex, which seems very unromantic, but I guess when you have a house full of kids and various responsibilities, you have to find time somewhere. And Debra ends the opening scene with the remark that going to the dentist is much like being in bed with Ray. They both say the same thing: sit back, relax, you won't feel a thing. And then we cut to the intro, and then we have bedtime, and Ray thinks that they've got this appointment. Debra is wearing her comfortable pajamas, and I have to say they look comfortable. They do look really comfortable. I wish, this is such a tiny thing, but there's not a lot in this episode that I can criticise, but I wish they'd given her Christmas pajamas. Maybe even red plaid pajamas or something with Christmas decorations on it. I'm not sure what was on it, I couldn't quite see, but they were pink, they weren't very festive. It's such a small thing, but because this is a Christmas episode, I think giving her Christmas pajamas would have just been a slightly better idea. But again, it is a tiny thing. We're then at Ray's work, and he and Andy are discussing things, and they ask a female colleague, Erin, played by Cavanaugh, why women don't like it as much as men do. And Erin says, who says they don't like it as much? And she gives them some pointers, things they maybe don't want to hear. It's not a bad interaction. It's nice to have a little bit of time in a different location. But again, because this is a Christmas episode, I think it would have been better if we spent more time in the house because it's festively decorated, or the workplace could have been a little bit more festive. Basically, when it's a Christmas episode, I like it to be very, very Christmassy. And the house is decorated absolutely beautifully. We have this gorgeous tree. There are decorations everywhere. There are cards hung up around the wall. It definitely looks festive, but there are so many little details that they could have changed, such as Debra's pajamas, such as Ray's workplace, to just make it even more Christmassy. These are definitely things that I think are areas of improvement. But notice that these are not things with the narrative itself. I don't have anything wrong with the narrative, but just little things like the decor and the costumes could have been a little bit better. Ray decides, though, to listen to what Debra said about when she asks for a massage. She's clearly trying to start something, so he decides to voluntarily give her a massage. And he's using, I think he called them magic fingers. They're like these little, I don't know what they are, vibrating finger things. I don't know, but it was going well until it got caught in Debra's hair. That's one way to kill the mood, but not for long, because we have the following day, and initially I actually thought it was first thing in the morning before everybody was up. Ray was downstairs, and he's in his boxers, his little Santa Claus boxers, and he's sweeping. And I actually thought it was very early in the morning, but actually it turns out they'd already been up, they'd opened presents. It was much later in the day, and this is when it gets quite festive because we do have the beautiful decorations. We have Ray in the aforementioned Santa boxer shorts, and Debra is wearing red. Everything definitely looks and feels a lot more festive. And then Robert, Marie, and Frank come over. They're bringing gifts, and then they start attacking the Christmas tree, basically passing judgment on everything. Robert breaks the top of the Christmas tree, not intentionally, but it's definitely very chaotic. And they exchange presents. Ray gave Robert golf balls. Robert gave Ray a remote-controlled aeroplane thing. And then they have dinner, and the dinner scene is done very, very quickly. We basically start at the end of the meal, and Ray suggests that he and Frank do the dishes so that Debra can relax. And Frank kind of reluctantly goes along with this. And Ray suggests that maybe Frank and Marie might want to take the kids over to their house, spend some time on Christmas Day with their grandkids, and eventually Frank realises what Ray is trying to do. And he says, leave it with me, and then turns around and then basically barks Marie's name. A man on a mission. And Marie, once she realises, as they're bundling all of the children together, Marie realises what's going on as well and tells Ray, it's Christmas Day, the baby Jesus is just being born. She's not exactly very enthusiastic about this, but obviously she goes with the kids and Frank and Robert, and Debra's no longer really in the mood. And after all of that kerfuffle and, quite frankly, embarrassment, I wouldn't blame her. But then Ray starts to try and find ways to get her back in the mood. He says something that she thinks is pathetic, and apparently that puts her in the mood. And things are going quite well. I mean, they roll off of the bed and hit the floor, but compared to how it has been going, it's going quite well. And then we hear a buzzing. And the next thing we see, Ray and Debra are on the floor on the left-hand side of the room. It's brilliantly framed, beautifully done, because you're not in it for a couple of seconds. We can hear the buzzing, but you're not quite sure where to look. Ray and Debra on the floor, down by the bed. The airplane that Ray bought Robert comes smashing through the window, and a couple of seconds later, Robert's head pops into the window, and it was very unexpected and really delightful, and I rather enjoyed it. And then we end with Ray back at work, and Andy and Erin are apparently together now, because Andy had said something pathetic and Erin liked it. But I don't know if that's necessarily a valid tactic, but it might work for some people. So it's definitely a good episode. There are certainly some bits that I really thoroughly enjoyed. There were a lot of great lines in this, particularly innuendos and things. I think they worked really well, very well written episode. And the Christmas aspect is, when they're in the house, it's not too bad. Apart from Debra's pyjamas, I think when they're in the house, it is definitely quite festive. But when we're away from the house, namely at Ray's work, it kind of pulls out of the Christmas atmosphere, and I don't really like that. Maybe some people like that, but when it comes to Christmas, I like things to be over the top, or at least sickly sweet. At least tinsel in every single scene, otherwise it's not Christmassy enough for my liking. But that aside, I think it was a pretty decent episode with some really great moments. All I Want for Christmas is definitely a pretty solid episode.